I keep this list. It's an ongoing list. It's always open to be modified at any given time. It's a list of the 5 worst Christmas gifts I've ever received from family. It's a sad list, admittedly. Number 5 on the list is something I got from my wife's grandmother, who, wow, I don't even know what to say. We unwrap it, and it was a Q-tip dispenser, and I know that doesn't sound like that radically bad, other than just lame, but it was not just lame; it was bad because you put the Q-tips in it, and you had to push this little button. And you would think that you push the button once and a Q-tip pops out, and it's supposed to save time as opposed to opening the drawer and getting a Q-tip. And so, but it didn't work that well. And you had to literally push this button for like 10 minutes to get a Q-tip. And it was absolutely ridiculous. And so that was horrible. The number 4 on my list came from my grandparents. And so I just, I want to keep it even. I don't know how Christmas is done in your house. In my house, Christmas is done very slowly. Now my wife, their family does the complete opposite. They pile all the presents in this big giant pile in the middle of the room, and somebody says go, and you just go, and you start unwrapping gifts. You don't even know if they're yours. You're unwrapping like girdles and grandma's stockings and things, and you're just going crazy. My house is the exact opposite. My house, we all sit down, and everybody sits in a big, nice family circle, and everybody drinks coffee and orange juice, and somebody's, is determined that they'll read the Christmas story, and so they read the Christmas story. Like out of all 4 Gospels, or all 3 Gospels, and it's just relentless. And then we go around and just smile at each other for a little while, and I don't even know what that's about. And then somebody's designated to be the Santa, and they hand you gifts. And you are under the situation where you unwrap the gift, and everybody's watching. And so as soon as you unwrap the gift, of course you hold it up so that everybody can look at this wonderful gift you've received, and this ooh and ah, ooh, ah, which puts you in a very difficult situation if it's a bad gift. And so I remember getting this gift from my grandma and grandpa, and I was excited because normally grandma and grandpa get me really cool stuff. And this is the Christmas of my freshman year of college, okay? So I'd come home from my first semester at college away, and I'm home, and they hand it to me like, Chris, we're so excited because this is something we really think you're going to be able to utilize at school this next semester. I'm thinking like, awesome, because I can always use something to make school better. And so I unwrap it, and I peel away all the wrapping paper, and I take the lid off the box, and there it is. I'm not even sure what to do with it because everybody's watching me. And so I know what's expected. I've got to hold it up for everybody to see and ooh and ah. And I reach inside and I pull out my fuzzy green Velcro towel with matching slippers. And I look at Grandma and Grandpa first, and they've got like these just huge smiles on their face, and they're so excited. It's like, awesome. And then I look at my brother, and he has a look of horror on his face because Grandma and Grandpa always get us the exact same thing. And so it was like, there's a horrible gift, and it was terrible. Number 3 on my list, when I was a kid growing up in San Diego, along with skateboarding and surfing and all that stuff, we also were really big into BMX bicycles, and all my friends had these really cool BMX bikes. They had like red lines and Diamondbacks and all these great, awesome bikes, and I just wanted an awesome bike, and I asked for an awesome bike for Christmas, and so my parents went out and got what they thought was an awesome bike, but as I got it on Christmas morning, I realized this is not an awesome bike because you just gave me a Huffy with giant shocks on the front. And like all my friends are popping wheelies. I can't even lift this thing off the ground. And it was horrible. Number 2 on my list was back when I was a kid and G.I. Joe was big. And we were really into G.I. Joe action figures. And so I remember that my brother and I both got out like this toy catalog, and we picked out the G.I. Joe vehicle and action figure that we wanted for Christmas. And we told Mom what we wanted. And so Christmas morning comes, and my brother goes first, and he opens up his gift, and it's exactly what he picked out. It was like this awesome, really cool black tank-looking thing with like missiles and rockets and guns and like these knives that come out and just stab people and all this cool stuff. And he pulls out the character, and it's like this really mean looking, he like the bad guys. It was like this mean, really evil looking guy from Cobra. And I mean, it was just like, that's awesome. I was so excited, like, he got exactly what he asked for. And so, of course, I grabbed my gift. I'm so excited. I rip it apart, and I look at it, and I realize this isn't quite what I asked for, but this vehicle is actually really cool, too. And it was another kind of a big tank, and it had, like, these giant boxes of huge missiles and had guns and big giant tires that would run people over. And I was getting pretty excited, and I reached in and then I grabbed out the action figure that came with my vehicle, and it was a woman. Now, I'm not saying women cannot be bearers of mass destruction, but imagine how it was for me the rest of that week outside playing with all my friends and their G.I. Joe figures as they all went off to war, and I stayed back and made coffee and ironed uniforms. Hurry back, boys! Hurry! Be safe! It was horrible. True story. I hate to admit that. Number one on my list came when I was 15. And there was a big thing when I was 15 it was an item of clothing. They were called jams. Anybody remember jams? Yeah, I know. All those old guys were like, jams. Jams were they were basically like long board shorts with really obnoxiously bright flower prints on them. And they were really cool. And of course, as soon as something gets popular, immediately the knockoffs come out. So you've got your original jams, and then you've got Kmart jams, and then you get your original jams, and you've got Dollar General jams. And so all I wanted for Christmas was I wanted an original pair of jams. It needed to have the logo that said original jams on it. That's what it said, original jams. And I just wanted those for Christmas. And Christmas morning came, and I opened up these original jams, and there they were, boom, exactly what I wanted. They had the logo and everything. And so a couple days after Christmas, I put on my jams, and my brother and I jumped on our skateboards, and we headed to the mall. I was going to the mall to work my new jams, and I was so excited. And I remember we walk in the food court, and it's just like, what's up? That's right. I am in the house, and I'm just feeling it, and I think everything stopped. I think everybody really looked at me. It was awesome. And so I'm walking, and out of nowhere, these older girls come walking up to me. And, they had to be 17 or 18, and they were really good looking. And they're walking to me. I'm like, these jams are awesome. These things really work. And they walk up, and they look me up and down. I'm like, that's right. And then one of them looks down, and she says, those are girl jams. I'm like, what? Those are girl jams. No. And literally, we bolted through the food court, and we took a left, and we went down to the department store, and sure enough, hanging in the females' pre-teen department were my jams. Oh, man, two things. I realized two things that day. One, Mom will never dress me again, ever. Two, it was a reality dose of how fragile this thing we all have called self-image is. It was a reality check of how hard it is to go through a day and even a week and feel good about who you are. Because one of the greatest things that weigh us down is this ability to feel good and accepted in this world. And how many of us have made really poor, silly decisions just to be accepted, almost just to get a laugh? I mean, who hasn't sat at a cafeteria table and you're sitting there and all of a sudden somebody drops a French fry in your drink? Everybody's, and then somebody puts a tater tot in there. And then before long, everybody's pouring corn and yogurt. Somebody's going, spitting it in there. And now you got this concoction. Somebody's like, drink it. And you don't know what you're doing, but all you know is they're going to like you if you drink it, and you're drinking it, you're drinking this. I mean, we've done it. You've been there. We do these silly things because we think if we do them, we'll feel accepted. I remember one day I was at a friend's house swimming. And their pool was here, and there was a fence. And I don't know what got over me, but I said, hey, I bet I could jump off the top of that fence into the pool. And they're like, yeah, you could. I'm like, I could. You're right. And so I get out, and I climb up there. I get on top of the fence, and I'm realizing maybe I can't. But now they're watching, and again, I've got to do this, or else they're going to laugh at me. They're going to look down on me. And so I remember standing up on this fence, and it wasn't that far. It was maybe just from here to the end of that stage. And I remember I pushed off. As I pushed off, the fence broke, which greatly lessened my incredible leap. And no lie, I landed with my waist up, made it to the pool. And it's like, boom, pancake right on the concrete, you know? And I remember sliding into the water, and underwater I'm like, oh. You know, then you come here like, it's all good. That didn't hurt at all. I'm just gonna stay in the pool for a while though, it feels good. Feels good, you know? And we do these things, and sometimes they're silly. You know, guys, we're the worst. Let's be honest. If there's girls watching, we're doing anything stupid. You know, we're trying to show off. We're trying to get noticed. You know, I watched Discovery Channel, and they were talking about on Planet Earth. Anybody watch Planet Earth? They were saying this big deal, you know, a couple years ago when they finally found these birds of paradise, you know, and the first time they've ever filmed them doing these weird dances to get the females' attention where they puff out their feathers, and they look all silly and goofy. Guys, that's you. It's really goofy. It's really sad. And I can say that because I'm a guy and I've done it. And although there's a lot of these little fun things that seem harmless, it quickly moves us into situations that become harmful to who we are. And it's not that we're in pursuit of bad things. It's not that feeling good about yourself is bad. It's the methods that we try to pursue it that become harmful to who we are. Girls, how many of you have allowed this desire for acceptance to drastically alter the way you dress? How many of you wear things that you know are not modest? You know don't necessarily present a godly image of yourself. How many of you allow things to happen, whether it's you flirting or you allow things to happen around you in your dating relationships because you just want to feel accepted by these guys? How many of you give parts of yourself away in order to just feel that good? Guys, how many of us, it's ridiculous, how many of us work so hard to build up this masculine facade and to present this attitude of apathy and act like we don't care and it's all good and nothing can hurt me, nothing can touch me, I'm invincible, and you carry yourself in that way where inside you know deep down when you're honest, you're just scared and you're struggling. How many of us in this room struggle to feel good because we've been hurt? We've been abused. We've been betrayed. And it keeps going down into this dark place and this downward spiral to where you begin to do things just to feel accepted, just to feel a little bit of that, or just even to ease the pain. And before long, you find yourself in a situation where if we were to all take labels and label the way we honestly view ourselves, sometimes when we look in the mirror, we would find labels in this room that read like liar, cheater, addict, worthless, damaged, unlovable, unacceptable. And our response so often is to simply continue to turn to this world and to continue to do things that remove the pain and that make us feel good for short periods of time. And we keep getting deeper and deeper into this thing. And before long, what we've done is, in pursuit of this acceptance that the world offers that is so temporary and so cheap and so meaningless, one day we wake up and we look in the mirror and we see something in the mirror that we do not even believe God can accept. And now you're in a spot where the only acceptance that has any power, the only acceptance that has any meaning, you cannot bear yourself enough to look up and ask for it. The reality is this: there is nobody that is too damaged. There is nobody that is too addicted. There is nobody that has been too hurt, that has done too much wrong. There is nobody that is too dark to outrun and outlast the grace and acceptance and love of Jesus Christ. Because in the darkest spots, when things seem the gloomiest and you're being the most honest with yourself and you're struggling the most to even lift your head up, I can tell you this, that reaching through the mist, reaching through just the haze of all that is the hand of Jesus Christ. Just like when Peter got out of the boat, and you know that story when Peter's in the boat and he sees Jesus walking on the water, and Peter's like, is that you, Lord? And he's like, yeah, man, water's great, come on out. Peter's like, really, if that's you, tell me to get out of the boat. And Jesus is like, all right, get out of the boat. Peter's like, I didn't think he'd say that. Man, that backfired. Well, I got to get out of the boat, and he gets out of the boat and he starts walking. He's like, what in the world? All right, I'm walking on the water. This is awesome. And this is water. This is water. These are waves. This is a storm. This is not right. I'm not supposed to be walking on the water. And as this begins to play, he's sinking. And in the midst of the raging storm and the waves crashing around him, again, he sees the hand of Jesus Christ reaching down to pull him out. I believe a lot of you in this room tonight feel like you are drowning in your life. A lot of you feel and can relate so perfectly to this drama that was played out up here of looking in the mirror and struggling to feel good about who you are. Struggling to feel like, the things you've done and the people that have hurt you or the people that you've hurt, it's just too much. How many of us, in pursuit of this acceptance, have woken up the next morning just overwhelmed with regret and guilt of what we participated in the night before? How many of you at a party have found yourself in the midst of a really good buzz, walking to the bathroom and catching a glimpse of yourself in the mirror and pausing long enough, even in the midst of the alcohol raging in your mind, to glimpse in the mirror enough to say, what are you doing? It's this empty pursuit to feel good about ourselves. It's this empty pursuit to find self-worth and self-value. And the sad reality is, the more you look to the world, the more you look to the people around you, the more you pursue it in these ways, you will never, ever find it. It'll keep leading you further and further down a dark path. But God is constantly standing there, and he has this amazing, instant acceptance. As soon as you turn to God, he's there, and it's instant. It's right then. There's a story in the book of Luke of Jesus Christ, and he's walking through, and it says multitudes of people have gathered around him. And I mean, they can't even get close enough. I mean, it's like this ridiculous, just hordes of people, crowds of people just trying to get closer to Jesus just to catch a glimpse of him. And in the midst of this, there's this little guy that heard about this Jesus dude. And he wants to see him. He just wants to catch a glimpse of him. But the problem is he's really short. And this little guy, Zacchaeus, he can't even get there. And I don't know this, but I think he probably looked a lot like Danny DeVito. So imagine Danny DeVito, like in a robe, trying to push his way through. Hey, let me see Jesus, And he goes and he finds a sycamore tree, and he climbs this tree. And so now you got Danny DeVito in a robe in a tree. And there's thousands, now keep in mind, there's thousands of people around, and they're all jockeying for position to get closer to Jesus. And I'm sure Jesus, he's just trying to work his way through and get to where he's going. And in the midst of this, he stops, and he pauses, and everybody's like, oh, hold your breath. He stopped. And he looks up, and he's like, you. And this is big. He says, Zacchaeus. Check it out. He had never met Zacchaeus. He didn't know Zacchaeus. Calls him by name, Zacchaeus. I'm coming to your house. And I know that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but let's understand a little bit about who Zacchaeus was. Zacchaeus was a tax collector, okay? Now, but that's not all. Zacchaeus was a Jewish tax collector, and that's not all. The reason he was a tax collector is he's collecting taxes for the Romans. The Romans had invaded the area, and the Romans were taxing the people, and the people hated the Romans. And I'm talking like a level of the way the French hated the Nazis when they were occupying France in World War II. It was that kind of hate. And they could not believe that one of their own, Zacchaeus, little Danny DeVito guy, would work for them. And it wasn't just a matter of working for them. Tax collectors received a percentage of everything they collected, meaning this: you collect more, you get more. And so tax collectors were thieves. They were terrible people. Nobody liked tax collectors. Nobody is certainly not one as rich and wealthy as Zacchaeus, because if he's rich and wealthy, it's because he's the best cheater out there. And so for Jesus to pause in the midst of everything and say, I'm coming to your house, that was an attitude of instant acceptance. You see, Zacchaeus had not changed a bit. Other than climbing a tree, he did nothing different that day. He didn't go out and get his life cleaned up. He didn't go out and make reparations with all the people he cheated. He did nothing other than climb a tree, and Jesus' acceptance was instant. And what you need to understand is tonight, sitting here in this room, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to get your life cleaned up. You don't have to make any significant changes right this moment. All you have to do is look up and cry out, and the instant you do that, you will find an accepting God looking back at you. It's instant. We also find in Galatians something else. We find that not only is it instant, it's all that matters. Paul writes this to the Galatians 1:10. Am I now trying to win approval of men or of God? Or am I trying to please men? If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a servant of Christ. Let me tell you something. Understanding that God's acceptance is all that matters is difficult. My youth pastor, back when I was in junior high, did something really kind of rotten. He challenged all of us to take our Bibles to school. And some of you may do that, and I think that's awesome. For me, that was like, wow, that's really difficult. And it's not like I had like a pocket Bible. For some reason, with God's divine timing, I had like this giant Bible. It's like absurdly big, like unneeded big. And so I was like, wow, I got to take this thing to school. And I remember taking it to school that day, and I did my best to hide it. I didn't want anybody asking me questions. I didn't want to explain why I'm carrying a Bible to school. And I did a pretty good job most of the day, and until it was gym. I remember in the locker room. I remember the locker room was red. And I don't know why that matters, it just doesn't, but it's free. You can take that home. And it was red. And I remember that I accidentally didn't get my Bible in my locker fast enough. And these kids came in, they're like, dude, is that a Bible? What are you, a Bible boy? You bringing your Bible to school? You a Bible boy buddy? And all these B words. I'm like, what? Are you a rhymer? And I remember being like, oh, what's that? What's that, man? How did that get here? I mean, yeah, it's my Bible, but, oh, man, that's so weird. How'd that happen? Unbelievable. I thought it was like my science book or something. Let me just get that out of here. And, and I just remember I was so embarrassed about that. And it wasn't until years later that all of a sudden the lesson that my youth pastor was trying to get across to me had nothing to do with taking my Bible to school. Had nothing to do with the physical part of actually doing that. It had everything to do with me exploring, was I ready to truly rely on God's acceptance only? And I wasn't.